This is CBC Vancouver News.
A stolen totem pole returns home.
We're so very happy to have our ancestor home.
After nearly a century in a Scottish museum, the Nisga'a Nation welcomes home a memorial pole. Plus, BC businesses caught in the Canada-India fallout.
We are worried and confused. We just hope that it does not affect, because this is our livelihood.
Fears about what's next and the billions of dollars at stake. And looking ahead to Orange Shirt Day.
You know, I got a lot of forgiveness I got to do because I'm a 60 scoop. I was taken away at 7 days old.
Marking the third annual day to commemorate truth and reconciliation. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. Dan is away tonight. Tomorrow marks National Truth and Reconciliation Day, and for the Nisga'a First Nation, reconciliation is tangible tonight with a precious totem pole stolen nearly a century ago, now returned home. And as Lindsay Duncombe explains, it's the result of a shift in attitudes half a world away.
This is reunion and reconciliation for the Nisga'a people, a family member finally home.
And it brings a lot of emotions to our nation. Emotions that are filled with happiness, filled with grief, filled with tears. But at the same time, we're so very happy to have our ancestor home.
The P'tsan, or totem pole, was carved in the 1860s, commissioned by a Nisga'a matriarch in honor of her nephew, Tsalzit.
He was just protecting his home soil, and he got killed in battle when they were fighting.
The nation says it was stolen by a Scottish ethnographer and sold to the Scottish National Museum in 1929. A mission to get it back 2 decades ago failed. The museum says when a new delegation visited last year, things had changed.
There has been a really strong shift to really starting to actively engage with the legacy of colonialism in our collections, and that includes working with and listening to the voices of Indigenous people.
Getting the pole to British Columbia was delicate, complicated work. The governments of Scotland and Canada foot the bill. First, it had to be dismantled in Scotland, then flown to BC on Canadian military aircraft.
And I think it's showing other Canadians and it's showing the world what is possible when we work together and we listen to Indigenous peoples and we involve them in making decisions and bringing back the return of stolen belongings.
The pole will be installed at the Nisga'a Museum, next to one returned from Victoria. There is room for more. As the youngest descendants lay protective cedar, the nation put other governments of France, Germany, Britain, Canada on notice. Nisga'a poles belong here, and they're coming for them. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Lacalsap.
As Canada and India's diplomatic spat continues, some businesses here in BC say they're caught in the fallout. Suspension of visa services has limited travel, and fear is growing over what's ahead. As Leanne Young reports, experts say billions of dollars could be at stake.
In any plan in farming, you got to be at least 6 months out planning.
Right.
So
it's kind of scary now.
Yeah, it's very scary.
Sonny Brar is worried about what to do next with his 40-acre blueberry farm. Local sales have been slumping, so for the first time this season, he branched out and successfully sold about 10% of his yield to India.
Is our investment, is it dead in the water, or is it going to be something that can, grow further?
He had some help to facilitate the export. This Surrey businessman says it took decades to build those relationships in India. And ever since, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused the Indian government of being involved in the killing of a Surrey Sikh activist. He sees the political standoff as a setback.
We are worried and confused. We just hope that it does not affect, because this is our livelihood.
India is BC's 5th largest trading partner. In 2022, the trade of goods and services between the two countries was worth almost $20 billion, a new record. And new trade negotiations between the countries were underway.
We are really disappointed as to what is going on right now.
At Surrey's Board of Trade, business with India has been a focus for decades, starting with a trade mission in 2011. When the nation recently suspended visa services in Canada, Haberman says businesses here took a hit.
We know when we have to do business in any country, you have to go on the ground in order to develop those relationships.
This couldn't have come at a worse time.
Trade analysts say the concern over what's next is warranted, but over the long term, the prediction is that trade will persist, much like it did when ties between Canada and China broke down several years ago.
When the relationship was at its all-time low, trade continued to grow.
But Dade says that's as long as neither country intervenes with measures like sanctions or embargoes. For business owners like Brar and Dumais, it's what they're hoping for.
Because India has other options. So as a business out of Canada, we are worried. If they would say, okay, it's not there, they would say, it's fine, we'll find some other origins. But for us, this is our livelihood.
Because they can't afford otherwise. Leanne Young, CBC News, Langley.
The BC medical community is in shock after a well-known Vancouver doctor was found dead yesterday. Dr. Tracy Pickett was reported missing earlier this week. As Yasmin Khaneh reports, police say her death does not appear to be the result of a crime.
Tracy Pickett's family reported her missing from her home in the Dunbar area Tuesday night. On Wednesday, Vancouver police launched an investigation into her disappearance. They say they found the remains of the 55-year-old in the Southlands neighborhood Thursday. Colleagues, friends, and family say they're devastated.
We are all grieving. She'd been in practice here for over 20 years. So many people were taught by her. She left so many traces on so many people. Positive traces.
Pickett was an emergency physician and a specialist in emergency and clinical forensic medicine. She testified in criminal trials throughout her career.
Her motivation came from a place of a very strong desire to have justice and to be an effective advocate for victims of some of the most horrible crimes that happen in our society.
She had testified at a high-profile sexual assault and murder trial the day she went missing. That prompted search efforts. She was due to testify again Thursday, but did not show up. The BC Coroner Service is investigating her cause of death, but police say it doesn't appear to be the result of crime. Officials aren't commenting further on what happened. Pickett leaves behind a husband and 2 daughters. Yasmin Khaneh, CBC News, Vancouver.
Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon has outlined his government's focus for the upcoming legislative session. The province is expected to introduce more legislation aimed at building housing faster for middle-income earners. As Mira Baines reports, the announcement is getting mixed reactions.
We need the federal government more involved.
The province hopes to make a dent in BC's housing crisis with a suite of legislative bills this upcoming session.
We know that there isn't one strategy that will fix this entire housing crisis. That's why we're taking a number of actions this fall.
The government House Leader and Housing Minister opened a 58-unit affordable housing development for seniors and families in Victoria today. Perhaps the most sweeping new legislation will be to allow multi-unit dwellings like duplexes and triplexes in neighborhoods where only single-family homes were allowed to be built.
We now need to start taking action. And so I suspect many communities will be happy and some communities may not be. But we are in a housing crisis.
Key pieces of legislation also include short-term rental rules, more housing for middle-income earners, and new rules and financing for secondary suites across communities in BC. Housing won't be the only thing on the table. Other new bills will focus on clean energy and public safety, and plans to limit the areas where people can use small amounts of illicit drugs under decriminalization. A big change in Victoria is the addition of a new official party, the Fourth. The BC Conservatives, headed by John Rustad, will now be allowed to join the Greens and BC United in asking questions in the House during session to hold the province to account.
Kevin Falcon and BC United really haven't been able to move forward at all in attacking the NDP and their comfortable majority, and quite to the contrary, they are now vulnerable on this right-wing flank to continue to bleed support to this upstart BC Conservative Party.
The next legislative session will get underway next Tuesday in Victoria. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
A local state of emergency has been declared in Williams Lake as a precautionary measure. A slow-moving landslide is threatening homes on the city's outskirts. 4 homes in the Terra Ridge housing complex have been on evacuation order since September 15th. Those who live in the area and are not on order are on evacuation alert over concerns about structural integrity of homes as water flows into the land.
We're hoping for help with the province, with the different ministries, to try and help to work with our other government leaders to figure out a solution for these people that are unfortunately having to deal with this at this time.
Baines says land erosion is a problem for many areas of Williams Lake. She says council is looking for a long-term solution. The goal is to shore up the land to lessen the impact of future climate-related disasters. Saturday marks National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in Canada, and across BC, some communities have already begun honoring survivors of the residential school system, as well as those who never came home.
Everybody paddle forward!
In Kelowna, members of the RCMP joined the West Bank First Nation to paddle across Okanagan Lake, where a Truth and Reconciliation ceremony was held.
I'm very proud of the RCMP's efforts to work with Indigenous people across the country to deal with the truth and reconciliation issues that we have and move that forward and put us in a better place.
I think it's getting better slowly, and there's there's a lot more support for the Indigenous community and peoples, and yeah, I have hope for it to change.
This is the second year the Kelowna RCMP have been invited to participate. A play called Bunk 7 centers on the true story of 6 young Indigenous teens at a residential school in Alberta. Janella Hamilton has more on the influential survivor who wrote the play and why his work is still relevant today.
This is Larry Gnu, a Nisga'a man, lawyer and MLA for the former riding of Atlan. He helped write the Nisga'a Nation Constitution, fighting for rights during a hostile time. As a teen in 1961, Gnu was forced into the Edmonton Indian Residential School.
This place scares me sometimes.
What? There, he and other boys bonded with a kindly caretaker. One day, that man was fired because he raised concerns of sexual abuse against children. Students rose up and rioted. These scenes are from those moments, imagined for the stage in a play called Bunk Number 7, written by Gnu. But he never saw his work come to life. He died in 2005 at age 65, before his manuscript was complete. But friends and family took it on for him, wrote the final lines. It's now in Burnaby, after a successful run in northern BC.
Growing up, my grandparents and my great-grandparents and my great-great-grandparents went to residential school.
Nick D'Angeli plays Gray, a character based on Gnu.
I can definitely feel it in those certain moments, right off the bat, once the lights comes on, is Gray's walking around the bunks. He's checking it out, he's looking around, and he's just seeing where he was at, because before he was in a TB sanitarium. And so he's trying to get the understanding and the understandings of what it's like in this school, and it's almost like I'm seeing that. I'm walking into that.
Seeing his work performed has meant a lot to Gnu's sister, who didn't know him growing up.
I didn't know him at all. He was gone before I was even born. He was sent away to residential school, and then he ended up, I believe, in a sanatorium for 3 years. He had TB, and then back to residential school.
Watching Bunk Number 7 gives her a glimpse into his life, his character, and ensures his legacy lives on.
I think he would love it. I think he would be proud, and he would be happy that his family has continued on to carry on his work.
Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Some of this coverage can be upsetting and invite painful feelings or memories. If you or someone you care about is looking for support, you can reach out to the National Residential School Crisis Line at 1-866-925-4419. It operates 24 hours a day and is available for survivors, intergenerational survivors, and their loved ones. All around the world, communities are celebrating MidAutumn Festival this weekend. The lunar calendar holiday is most often spent with family and food while admiring the moon. Our Caroline Chan went out to check out some of the festivities taking place in Vancouver's Chinatown.
It's bustling here at the Dr. Sun Yat-sen Classical Chinese Garden. Today we're marking MidAutumn Festival, which is the 15th day of the 8th month. Lots of things to do and see here. There are a number of performances with singers and dancers, as well as displays of artwork in the park, which they're using for these festivities. It's an Indigenous-led downtown Eastside youth art exhibition. And for those who are looking to get a bit hands-on, there's also arts and crafts, where people can make decorative magnets and origami mooncake boxes.
So this is one of the crafts we'll be making. This is the mooncake box. And then you can usually just fill it with little gifts inside to give people. Mooncake might be a little bit too big. And we also have some magnets. We will be making some magnets.
MidAutumn Festival is also considered the Moon Festival because it's when the harvest moon is at its brightest and biggest. It's a reminder for many to reconnect and spend time with families and friends and to admire the moon.
It's a time when you gather with your friends and your family, and you basically make a wish at the moon and say, hey, I wish to keep gathering again.
It means reconnected with my parents and having mooncake and just finding out about my roots and the Chinese culture. So it's a very fun time.
MidAutumn Festival festivities here run through to Saturday evening. Caroline Chan, CBC News, Vancouver.
I need to know now, like that one, do you love it?
A new soccer video game designed right here in Metro Vancouver with special emphasis on local players and teams. We'll have that story next. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Alberta's population is booming. In fact, more people moved there last year compared to any other province. But as Anis Haidari reports, the bigger the population grows, the greater demand on resources.
I'm standing in front of something that a lot of folks in Toronto or Vancouver don't get to see very often.
When politicians said Alberta was calling, in Toronto, Michael Monge answered.
The dream of owning a home in Toronto, you would get more value in Calgary, or at least that was the thought.
A campaign to lure others to Alberta maybe worked too well, as new Calgary transplants are finding out.
You're seeing herds of people lining up for a reasonable condo. And when I say reasonable, it's like less than $1,800.
Alberta saw the highest number of people moving there from other provinces last year. More than 56,000 people net from other provinces, a record. But record numbers mean strained services for those from Canada and around the world.
When you have to wait, anywhere from 6 months, maybe even up to a year to just access your first English language class, that sets you back.
Population growth can mean economic growth too, but adds challenges.
It takes a while to build more infrastructure. It takes about roads, utilities, and all this. So we have to adjust to this and on a scale that we've never had to do before.
Public services like healthcare or education will face higher pressures.
Alberta, we're a country with the fastest growing population in the world, exceeding anything you see in Africa. So that's a big deal.
The province says it will ensure Albertans have access to services, but has previously projected the population will keep going up, hitting 5 million later this decade. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Today is the worldwide release of EA Sports FC 24. It's the new soccer video game taking over the hugely popular FIFA series. The game was developed at EA's studio in Burnaby, and as Lawrence Watt reports, the ties to Metro Vancouver does not end there.
It's a franchise that's won over millions of fans and left a legacy that goes beyond gameplay.
I have a stressful day. I go play FIFA for like a couple of hours. It's the whole experience. So the soundtracks bring you into these moments. I think there's this, I need to know now, like that one, do you like?
After nearly 30 years and over 325 million games sold, Electronic Arts has cut ties with FIFA to kick off a new game called EA Sports FC.
So as we move into the era of EA Sports FC, FC being football club, we have this great privilege of being the biggest football club in the world, and we take a tremendous amount of responsibility in making sure that we are delivering great experiences.
Fans aren't the only ones with expectations. Some real-life soccer players are calling for higher in-game ratings, stats that reflect their overall skill level based on real-world performances.
It started as 50, yeah, but now they upgraded to 56. But I still think, they could give me a little bump. I'll take mid-60s.
They've given me like a lot of traits, so yeah, I'm grateful for that. But I think we should bump the pace and bump the rating.
And the response to Ryan?
As sport fans, there's always that debate around ratings. But he is rated higher this year than he was last year, so he'll take hopefully a little bit of solace in that. And we've got this beautiful pitch out here. We would love to have him come out and visit us, and we can talk through and see if there's something that we might be missing.
Along with new ratings and gameplay, Vancouver fans can expect to see the return of local features from previous FIFA titles. Things like BC Place, and jerseys designed by members of the Musqueam Indian Band in southwest Vancouver. So the full-time whistle has blown for one of the most successful gaming franchises in the world. But for EA Sports FC, the match has just begun. Lawrence Watt, CBC News, Burnaby.
Here we have a live shot of Harbour Centre. Amy Bell will have our full forecast coming up next.
The streets of Vancouver's Chinatown are rich with tradition, and on this, the 15th day of the 8th month in the Chinese calendar, one of those traditions says this is the day to honor the moon.
Every year, today is a special day. We get our family people together.
Around the world, people celebrate with rituals that go back thousands of years.
Not only mooncake, with this too, that's what we call was Julong.
During the MidAutumn Festival, that day in the year when the moon is at its roundest, families head outside carrying lanterns and eating little pastries called mooncakes.
Once a year, just like the Christmas cake. And people also like it, just some different tastes.
The mooncake is a big part of this celebration. At Maxim's Bakery in Chinatown, they sell tens of thousands of them.
Do they taste good?
Oh, you got to try it. I tried the one with the yolk and the red bean.
History says in the 14th century, these dense little cakes were used to overthrow a dynasty.
Long time ago, then there was they put the message inside of the mooncake.
The message said, "Revolt on the 15th day of the 8th moon." Ever since, they've become an integral part of the festival.
Do you have a big sale on them tomorrow?
Maybe. Millions are sold around the world. A sign of respect when given to elders, a smart business move when given to employees. But like so many traditions, it isn't what it once was.
More for the old traditional people, Chinese.
The reason?
Fatty and greasy.
You don't want them. They just smell good, not healthy, be honest with you. I'm sorry, this is not the right answer you want to hear.
Still, when the moon rises tonight, families around the world will look and pay homage to the miracle that is Mother Nature. Deborah Goebel, CBC News, Vancouver.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Amy Bell joins us now with a look at our full forecast. Amy, it was a beautiful sunny day. My dog definitely got outside on the patio and was sun tanning. It was very refreshing to see.
It was lovely. After
a lot
a
of
bit of
autumn too in the air.
It's crisp, but it's gorgeous. And yes, after a few soggy days, it was nice for all the pups and their owners to get out on some decks and soak up that sunshine. And it's not short-lived. We're actually looking at it right through the weekend. It's not until Monday that we see a return to that more standard fall weather. But yes, we will enjoy what we can today. As you can see, though, we started off with a very light bit of cloud cover that quickly moved out of the way early in the morning, and we were just left with this stunning day. Hitting repeat, though, for tomorrow. And pretty much hitting repeat for Sunday. The only change is Sunday, late in the day, we'll start to see some clouds coming in, and then Sunday night into Monday is when we'll start to see a change. You can already see what's happening off the north coast, that big system setting up, and that will move in. But for the meantime, we've got this nice ridge of high pressure that's set up, and that's just going to sort of form a protective barrier over the weekend to keep all of that moisture out of the way. We will see it coming into the north coast and at the very northern parts of the province earlier in the weekend, but for us here in the lower mainland and on Vancouver Island, for the most part, we are looking great. Taking a look at the 5-day forecast, you really can't ask for more for the first real full weekend, or sorry, the second full weekend of autumn. A little bit heavier cloud in the morning in the Fraser Valley, Whistler as well, but over on Vancouver Island, we're looking at a nice mix of sun and cloud throughout the day. One outlier is the Cranbrook area. Tomorrow you could see some passing showers just cutting up in a little bit of system that's riding the Alberta-BC border, but everything else looking stunning with those temperatures in the mid-teen range. 5-day forecast, as you can see, we start to see things getting a little bit cloudier Sunday night. We do head into the rain on Monday and Tuesday, but we rebound midweek next week with some sunshine, and once again, those temperatures in the mid-teens. So enjoy.
Thank you so much, Amy.
You're welcome.
That is your late news for this Friday. Thank you so much for watching. For news anytime, visit cbc.ca/bc. Have a great night.